In this movie, we're going to use that selection outline that we created in the previous two movies in order to get rid of the existing sky inside of this photograph and replace it with a new one, complete with Mars in the background. So the first step is to make sure that you have your selection outline once again, and then with the landscape layer selected here inside the layers panel, drop down to this icon at the bottom of the panel, the one that looks like a rectangle with a circle cut out of it, which reads Add Layer Mask, and then go ahead and click on it in order to convert the selection to a mask. And what happens is everything inside the selection remains visible and everything outside the selection disappears. All right, now we want to add a new gradient layer, and we'll do that by first zooming out a little bit and drawing a rectangular marquee down to the top of this rock right there. Do you see this rock over here on the left-hand side of the image? Go ahead and drag down to the top of that rock so that we're selecting the top portion of the image. All right, now I'll go ahead and zoom back in. And then you want to go up to the layer menu and choose New Fill Layer, and then choose Gradient. I'm going to go ahead and name this new gradient layer Sky, and then I'll click OK. And you may end up with these default settings. Doesn't really matter. What we want to do is make sure that style is set to linear so that we're drawing a gradient from one color to another in a straight line. Then go ahead and click on a gradient bar right here in order to bring up the gradient editor dialog box. In my case, I've got a gradient that starts with an opacity of 100% and ends with an opacity of 0%. So see this little white square, which is known as an opacity stop above the gradient bar? You want to grab that guy and just drag it upward to get rid of it so that we're creating an entirely opaque gradient. Now go ahead and double click on this first color stop. Color stops are located below the color bar. Opacity stops are located above it. So go ahead and double click on this first color stop below the gradient bar in order to bring up the color picker dialog box, and then dial in the hue value of 210 degrees, change the saturation value to 100%, and set the brightness value to 33%, and then click OK, and we'll end up with this dark shade of blue. Now double click on the last color stop, the one over here on the right-hand side of the gradient, and this time dial in a hue value, once again, of 210 degrees, but we want a lighter, less saturated color. So let's go ahead and switch those two values we entered a moment ago. I'll change the saturation value to 33%, and I'll set the brightness value to 100%, and we end up with this effect here. Now go ahead and click OK, and click OK again in order to return to the gradient fill dialog box. Now notice that the gradient is going from dark down here at the bottom to light up here at the top. We want it to be the other way around. And you can accomplish that by either turning on the reverse checkbox right there, like so, or I'll go ahead and turn it off. You can just change the angle from positive 90 degrees to negative 90 degrees. So either way works. You can also drag the gradient around, by the way. Notice if you just drag here inside the image window, you'll move the gradient up and down. If that's not what you want, just go ahead and click on Reset Alignment in order to restore the original alignment of that gradient, and then click OK. Now, obviously, the gradient, and for that matter, Mars as well, should be behind the rocks. So go ahead and turn the Mars layer on, and then grab that landscape layer and drag it to the top of the stack. Or, here's another way to work, just in case you're interested. You can go to the Layer menu, choose Arrange, and then choose Bring to Front. And notice it has a keyboard shortcut of Control-Shift-Right bracket, which is the universal keyboard shortcut for Bring to Front inside the various Adobe Creative Cloud applications. Anyway, I'll go ahead and choose that command, and you can see that bumps the landscape layer to the top of the stack so that the sky is behind it, and we see Lars looming upward in the background. All right, now let's go ahead and scale and position Mars by clicking on the Mars layer to make it active. And then you want to go up to the Edit menu and choose the Free Transform command. And once again, Free Transform is that command that allows you to scale and rotate and flip and otherwise manipulate entire layers. I'll go ahead and choose the command or press Control-T or Command-T on the Mac for Transform. And I want this guy to be quite a bit smaller. Now, I don't want him to be all squished like this. So I'll go ahead and press the Shift key as I drag. And I've already blown it because, as you can see here, now that I've squished this layer, pressing the Shift key just goes ahead and maintains the new proportions, which is not what I want. If I want to restore the original proportions, then all I need to do is go up here to the options bar, W is width, H is height. This link between them goes ahead and links the two values together. And notice as soon as I turn it on, I once again end up with a circular planet. For my part, I want to change the width value to 70%. Because the two values are linked together, that's going to change the height value to 70% as well. And I want to drag the planet over here someplace. I also want to flip it, incidentally, which you can do while you're in free transform mode by right-clicking inside the image window and choosing, in my case, flip horizontal in order to flip the planet like so. And now I want to move it to a very specific location. And I just happen to know the coordinates. So I'll go ahead and click in the upper left corner of this little reference point matrix on the far left side of the options bar. And then I'll change the X value to 1160, meaning that we're 1160 points in from the left edge of the canvas. And then I'll tab over to the Y value and I'll change it to negative 190, which means the planet is actually higher than the edge of the canvas by 190 pixels, as you can see right here. And then I'll go ahead and press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac a couple of times in order to accept that change. And then finally, I want the planet to brighten its background, and I'm going to get that effect using a blend mode. So I'll go over here to the word normal in the upper left corner of the layers panel. I'll click on it, and I will choose that mode that allows you to use one layer to brighten another, which is screen, and I'll achieve this effect right here. And that's how we transform our selection outline into a layer mask, as well as introduce a new background in the form of this gradient sky and the scaled and flipped version of the planet Mars here inside Photoshop.